Okay, so let's talk about how you can hit the perfect drive. A bit away from target. The last thing you want is to be leaning kind of into this left side with a spine angle tilting towards target, because that will again promote a downward hit, and that is something we don't want with the driver. Okay, so let's talk about how you can hit the perfect drive. So there's some really important components you need to match up to hit the perfect drive. So to hit it the longest you can with the club head speed that you produce. So the most important aspect really is ball speed, and that's down to strikes. You've got to make sure that you are striking the middle of the club face when you're hitting your driver to get your optimal ball speed. If you're hitting it out of the toe or the heel, the ball speed will reduce. High toe does generally produce some pretty good ball speed numbers. A lot of golfers do strike it slightly high toe, and then you get that higher drawing launch that does chase on a long way with low spin. But ideally you do want to be trying to strike each one out in the middle of the club face, and we'll talk about how you can do that in a second. The other bit is the launch of the ball. You want to be getting the optimal launch, so producing the right amount of loft to the driver, matching in with your angle of attack. So we'll talk about angle of attack in a second. So if you're producing too much loft, the ball's going to go too high and not run out much. If you're not producing enough loft, the ball's not going to carry, and it will carry a short distance, but it will run a little bit as well. So quite often you'll see links golfers that have a lower ball flight, but their ball runs forever on the links courses. So then when they get to a parkland course, they struggle a little bit because the ball doesn't run out quite so much. So you've got to be optimizing these numbers, and we'll take a look on the TrackMan in a second, and we'll look at the shot optimizer, and we'll see the difference in the numbers and what you can do to your swing and your game to help you hit the perfect drive. So the other thing is the angle of attack. You've got to make sure that you're hitting an optimal angle of attack, which is normally around 1 on the up, 2 on the up, to produce your best distance. If you can get a big angle of attack on the up with low dynamic loft and get a high launch with low spin, the ball's going to carry a very long way if you're producing optimal ball speed as well off the middle of the club face. So let's talk about how you can get these optimal numbers. So first of all, let's talk about your angle of attack. So if you're teeing the ball up in the middle of your stance, that's going to promote an angle of attack that's more on the down. So you'll generally spin it quite a lot, and you can also get these strikes that come off the top of the club face. We'll take a look at that in the TrackMan in a second. So ideally you want to be teeing the ball high, so tee it halfway above the driver head and tee it off of your left or your lead foot. Okay, tee it up on that lead foot. From this position, to help that upward angle of attack, make sure your hips are set neutral. You can even bump that left hip forward a little bit to help promote a spine angle that tilts a little bit away from target. The last thing you want is to be leaning kind of into this left side with a spine angle tilting towards target, because that will again promote a downward hit, and that is something we don't want with the driver. So ball position on that left foot, tilt that spine angle slightly away from target, and then as we are hitting down into the ball, you want to keep that head back in the same position. But can you see how the hips turn? So they're rotating, so the hips are rotating, but they're also moving towards target as well. So we go to the top, we squat down, we get that move towards target, and then they're rotating out of the way. So we started here, so just kind of inside the left heel with the hips. As we drive through, we're now kind of on the left ankle, so they've moved forward, which has created more spine tilt, which enables us to hit more on the up again. So that really helps get the angle of attack on the up, get that launch on the up. Now, how do we keep this dynamic loft down? And we'll hit a few in a second, and we'll talk through this. How do we keep that dynamic loft down? Well, that's a little bit trickier. Okay, so what I'll often see with golfers is they're trying to hit that ball up in the air, so they're kind of leaning back onto this back foot, and they're kind of scooping the hands to help it up in the air. Now, what you want to be doing is, like I mentioned with the angle attack, to get that hip bumping towards target, but also you've got to hold on to these wrist conditions as you're driving through. So hold on to this flat left wrist as you're bringing down the club. So as the shaft is parallel to the floor, you should have your hands below your chin. That's a good position to be looking for, hands below the chin, and then hold on to that angle as you're launching up. Can you see how my hands are slightly in front of the driver as we reach close to impact? If you're here, you're going to be producing quite high spin numbers, you're going to be hitting it really high, and you're not going to be getting the optimal ball speed that you can produce. So it's about trying to keep that left wrist flat as you're driving through this nice straight line between the left arm and the shaft. As you're driving through the shot, you don't want to be scooping that ball. Okay, so we'll just quickly run through those positions again one more time, just to remind you. So it's that ball position on that left foot. Okay, we're tilting the spine away from target, keeping that head neutral. Okay, we are then, as we're hitting down, we're bumping the hip towards target, keeping that head back. Okay, now for that optimal launch with that dynamic loft of the club. So dynamic loft is the angle of the face at impact. Okay, so we've got a low dynamic loft, you're going to be taking loft off of the club. A high dynamic loft, you're going to be adding loft to the club. So you want to be trying to take a little bit of loft kind of off of that drive as you're driving through, launching up. So we're trying to keep that left wrist nice and flat as we drive through, as we're kind of firing that right hand through the shot, because we've got this angle here. So now it's about firing that right hand through the shot to create that speed. Now strike. Now, to have a consistent strike, you can't just go out and play once a month and expect a consistent strike. Okay, it does take practice. You do need to hit balls to create that consistent strike. So if you're a once a month golfer, don't be disheartened if you are misstriking the ball. It's normal. Okay, you probably haven't put the time in, so expect a few missed strikes. But something that can help you is your process. Make sure you repeat the process of your setup. So if you're standing at different distances to the ball each time, it's going to be nigh on impossible to have a consistent strike. So go through a routine, find a routine, watch them golf on the telly, watch their routine and learn from the best in the world. And I'll help you out with a bit of a process here. So I will always stand behind the ball, line up my target, pick something in front. I then always start with the club face angle to target, making sure the ball is in the middle of the club face, then ball position, then grip, and then finally I'll take a look at target and just get a feel for where your body position is. So one thing you can do is in that setup, once you've got your kind of knee flex, just let the club kind of rest down and see where it is on your knee. So mine is just resting kind of just below the shorts. So each time I get into setup, I know that the grip of the handle has to rest just below my shorts. It's just repeating those positions. And another good way of getting your strike is actually to practice striking different areas on the club face. And you can do this by just spraying some. You've probably seen this drill all over the place because it's the best drill you can do really to help strike with driver. Spray some athlete's foot spray on the face of the driver, okay? And then hit a shot and try and hit the middle. And if you successfully do that, hit another one and try and move it to the toe, then move it to the heel. And then you will see the different flights that you get out of the driver from missing the middle of the club face. Okay, it's because of the gear effect and the bulge in the club face. You strike it out the toe, the club face is bulged slightly this way, okay, and that way. So it will send the ball right, but then it will produce draw spin and bring it back. Again, for the heel of the club, it will send it left, produce fade spin and bring it back. It also is to do with the kind of kick of the club head. So if you strike it at the toe, the driver actually spins that way, and it actually produces that draw spin as well on the ball. So it's very clever, the technology behind these drivers. So what we'll do is we'll hit a few shots and we'll show you how you can produce these numbers by getting to these positions, and I'll do some where I don't get into the positions and you can actually see the difference in the numbers. Okay, so let's take a look at these numbers here and see where you can gain some more yards and some more consistency with your driving, because by looking at these strikes on the face and the delivery and understanding how you can change your technique to find optimal numbers, that can only be a good thing. So let's take a look at this one. So this was struck on the bottom of the face. Now you can see here how the club head speed was up at 110, but it's only carried 243. Now it's saying up there that could have carried 273 yards with that club head speed if we had met the launch angle at 10, so that would have been more at the centre of the club face. Ball speed at 164, centre of the club face would have put ball speed up. Spin loft, again, centre of the club face would have put dynamic loft up. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but with the driver, if you strike it off the bottom of the face, the loft is less, so it flies lower. If you strike it off the top of the face, the loft is greater off the top of the face, so it's going to fly higher. So that was just purely down to strike, which is why it carried that 20 yards less there. So 30 yards less actually. So just by purely striking it off the bottom, lost 30 yards. Now let's go up to the next one here. So here we found optimal, pretty much centre of the club face, but you can see how all the orange arrows match the blue lines there. So we've carried that 280 with a club head speed of 112. But angle of attack was nicely +1, dynamic loft 12, ball speed up at 166, spin rate at about 2,300 revs. So we found optimal there. We couldn't have hit that any further unless we'd produced more club head speed. So here with this one, this was a heel strike, so you can see how ball speed's dropped, launch angle's hopped up, spin rate's gone up, spin loft is up because it's launched higher. So we've lost 10 yards there. So this here is kind of ways in which you can gain huge yardage. Like look at this one, this is 190 yards it's carried. It was way out the toe, so we could have hit that 80 yards further purely just by striking it out the middle of the club face. Let's go to a different one here. So now we've got one where I hit down into the ball. So if you're a golfer that perhaps maybe takes a little divot after your shot, so you hit it quite low, then you might want to look at this one. So this was angle of attack of -6. Now I've flushed this one. I've hit it pure out the middle there. You can see with that driver face. Couldn't have struck that shot any better. So it's nearly gone sort of optimal distance for that particular delivery of -6 angle of attack. But if you had hopped that angle of attack more on the up, then it's just hop to the next shot. So I changed this angle of attack more on the up. It's 2 miles an hour quicker, but can you see how we've gone from a carry of 250 to a carry of 270? So we've gained 20 yards just by striking it more on the up. We changed the angle of attack by, let's say, 7 degrees, 8 degrees, and we have launched that. It's launched at 9 degrees, whereas the angle of attack on the down launched at 6 degrees. Ball speed's up at 161, and on the down the ball speed was still at 160. So you can see that ball speed, well, there's a 2 mile an hour difference there, 161.8 and then 160.4. So the ball speed when I hit on the up was only 2 mile an hour quicker, but it's actually gone 20 yards further, 23 yards further, purely by changing the angle of attack by 6 degrees. So this is where the delivery of the driver, so the loft of the driver impact, the strike, and the angle you're hitting is so important. So see here, I purposely added extra loft to the driver through impact. So I hit this with 19 degrees of loft. So it's carried 244 yards. It could have carried further if we'd have matched up a few of the numbers a bit better. But again, so we're down on that optimal yardage. The club head speed was down a bit as well. And then here, just a final shot that we hit, where we've hit up on the angle of attack. It's got 3 up, we've got 107 miles an hour, got that ball speed up nice and high. So we've found optimal there. It was a little bit out of the toe, which probably made it spin that little bit less, which is how it's carried so far there. It just goes to show how if you find these optimal numbers, then you can hit the ball further. So let's just finish off here and show you a nice drill that you can do to help your angle of attack. And at the start of this, we went through how you can improve your dynamic loft at impact. So if you can get down the range and work on this a little bit, it'd be great to hear how you get on. And stick around and just watch this drill that we've got. Okay, so there you can see that if you match up your angle of attack with your dynamic loft, and a good strike, you can produce your optimal numbers. Now I'm just going to give you a quick bonus drill here to help you with your angle of attack, and what I've done is I've put 2 T-pegs just in front of the ball, and I've just pushed them down so they are about ½ an inch out of the ground. One side to the right of the ball, one to the left, and they're only just about a golf ball width apart. Now what I want you to do is just hit some drives, and you've got to try and miss those T-pegs. So you've really got to hit up on this ball, try and launch it up there and miss those T-pegs. Don't forget though, as you're launching up, you want to be trying to get your hands firing just in front of that ball to get that dynamic loft down whilst you're doing this. So let's have a little go here. Miss those T-pegs, get that angle of attack nicely on the up, launch that ball out there nicely. So there we've missed the 2 T-pegs, we've struck that pretty nicely there, and it's launched out there at a good height, and we're probably going to hit optimal numbers there. Now, if you enjoyed the video, if you can hit the like button, if you want to see more like this, then hit the subscribe button, and good luck trying to hit that perfect drive.